Talking about vision, up next is a gentleman who also has a great deal of vision. You must have heard of the award-winning e-Topal that is now being part of syllabus in MBA programs all across the world. That was an initiative that was started under his leadership at the agribusiness division of the organization that he is with. He is now the Divisional Chief Executive for the Agribusiness Division and also the Chairman for Technico Agri Sciences Limited, Vice Chairman of ITC Infotech India Limited and its subsidiaries across the world, most notably in the United Kingdom and the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, for the second keynote on this wonderful day, please welcome S. Sivkumar.
Very good morning, friends. Firstly, I think I must thank both Sandeep Bajoria and Kailash Singh for inviting me here. And until they actually sent me the topic of what I should speak on, I thought they were friends. See, this is a body generally very concerned about what will happen to prices in the next 6 months. Next 1 year. And in the past I have spoken on fora like this on these kind of aspects. But this time they said, okay, speak on something long term. Is the agri-food industry's growth trajectory right? So when you're saying what will happen in the next 6 months and here is someone coming and talking to you on things which are really long term, so you'll all go back to your mobile phones and your iPads and keep doing your own stuff. And not only that, it is also even more complex because now is this on right growth trajectory from whose perspective? When I came in and shook hands with half a dozen people last evening at dinner, so every one of them were representing a different part of the industry, so much so that they are 180 degrees apart. Somebody is so happy with prices going up, somebody is so distressed prices have gone up. Now when you say, is the growth trajectory right? Now for whom is it right? It is also not a simple statistical number where you say we are growing at 4, 5, 6, whatever percentage. That's not good enough. Let's grow at 10. It's not as simple as that when you have such a diversity in the stakeholders. So then I thought, what should really be the way in which this topic should be dealt with? To keep you away from your mobile phones as well as from your short-term concerns. We just heard Sudhakar going into future to bring in some very interesting points of this industry. So I thought, let me go back to the past. And not just past as in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, or 1,000 years, or 5,000 years. But I thought, let me go back to the Hindu mythology. Okay, some of the friends who are from different parts of the world here, it may not make much sense, but I thought, let me use mythology as a platform to discuss what's happening to our growth trajectory. And each of our perspectives are unique depending on who you are. Like they say, what your stand is based on where you sit. Do you want the prices to go up? Do you want the prices to go down? Is depending on who you are and where you sit at that particular point of time. So everybody is unique. And yet, obviously when all of us are together here, it's part of something common which is binding us together, one common fraternity. So when you look back in mythology and say, is there someone so unique and yet bonded together? One thought occurred to me saying that, yeah, there are Pandavas pond out there. As you know, remember from that Coke ad with a big thappad, how many pandas are there? So you all remember there are 5. Now each one of them is unique. They're all in it together. And all the stakeholders in our industry, I thought, are represented by each of them in a very interesting manner. So first one is Yudhishthir, the Dharmaraj. He is obviously well known for believing in truth, that in all his life, if he had lied once, it was half a lie. So he believed in truth, he believed in fairness, but what's really unique in him is the gambler's instinct. He lost everything and went back to gambling again. And amongst our stakeholders, someone with that kind of a trait is the farmer. Because there is no option for the farmer, despite losing everything, goes back and again takes a fresh gamble. Now we are saying there's a great monsoon, good rains, but if it rains too much, if it rains too little, if it rains at a wrong time, there's misery again. So there is no option but to go back to gambling, because there is no other entrepreneurial activity in this world that I know of that takes such a high level of risk for such a small reward. We just heard Sudhakar saying that if we ate today, we should thank farmer, but that comes out of this level of entrepreneurial activity. Now, 50% of all our workforce comes from farming, and only 13% of our GDP at this time. This says the per capita GDP of a farmer is less than 1/5 of any other income generating activity. And therefore, for a farmer who actually brought us out of the PL 480 days, some of you would remember, and raised agricultural production so much, enabling exports, to now at the end of 70 years, having 1/6 of a per capita GDP compared to the rest of us, is a situation where the trajectory of growth for him means higher income, not just more production. The farmers are happy to take a crop holiday, are happy when the crop fails, so long as the prices are good and I make some money as a farmer. So a growth trajectory for him is higher income, and for the first time, I'm happy that the government took on an outcome objective saying we want to double farmers' incomes by 2022. So far it's all outlays and outputs, but for the first time an outcome is taken as a goal. So that's one stakeholder we have. Now, at the other end of the spectrum is through another character. So we have well-known Arjun, who is known besides many things. So he is known as Atirata, Maharada and all of that. But I think what he is well known for right from his childhood was his acute focus. Even as a child, when everybody looked at, when Dronacharya asked, now shoot that bird, everybody else saw the tree and the leaves and the whole bird and so on. So Arjun is the only one who looked at the bird and the bird's head and nothing else. So to my mind, this character well represents the food consumer in India and to some degree elsewhere also. Our consumer is so value focused, whether you are a top-end premium consumer of premium food products, or whether it is the bottom end who is subsisting on the fair price delivery of the government, or the mass market middle class consumer, every single consumer is single-mindedly focused on value for money. I want what I want, but this is the only price I can pay. Now, you have a shift in terms of what the consumer is looking for. We just had, from a PL 480 days, one were to go back and look at that, just more food was good enough. But today, the consumer is saying, I want variety. So I want fruits, vegetables, milk, meat, and so on, not just cereals. The consumer is also saying, I want quality. Consumer is looking for convenience of buying, consuming, and so on. And increasingly, safety. The food safety consciousness and the whole awareness is at a far higher order today than ever before. So all these new characteristics that the consumer is seeking in the food must all deliver that value for money, and that's the focus consumer has, and therefore, so I believe we can use an analogy of Arjun for the consumer. So you have somebody who is looking for higher incomes as a farmer, and somebody is looking at lower prices as a consumer. So there starts the first uniqueness, and then how do you really mix and match this reality. And then there is Nakul. So one of the interesting, unique capabilities of Nakul is that he can ride on a horse in rain, but he doesn't get wet. So he rides so fast that a drop doesn't touch. And something like that, to my mind, in this stakeholder portfolio of our industry is the agribusiness and food processing industry. They ride through season so fast without ever making profits. And if in 1 year you make profit, next year and year after you don't know what will happen. So when in a cycle you look at, that is the kind of a situation that one has. And therefore, when Alex started his introductory remark this morning, so he was saying whether the sweetness will last few days or longer than a year or maybe 2 years, but nobody can credibly think of this happiness lasting beyond something like that. And that again, mind you, is for one segment of this larger set of stakeholders. And then we have Sahadev. So who is well known for knowing the future. And he is the master planner for the whole set of Pandavas. Our services community in this sector, so be it brokers, be it the quality testing service providers, be it the shipping agents and otherwise clearing agents and logistics providers and the whole host of people led by the brokers as a lot, typically are the people who know the future, where the prices are going to be and so on. But much like Sahadev, you know the future, but you can't tell the future, you can't share the future with anybody because he has that curse. And consequently, while they guide the whole industry, there's only so much that they can take away from this. If somebody is looking for higher income, somebody is looking for larger volume, somebody is looking for different kind of a throughput, that's the diversity of the stakeholders that we have. For a good reason I left him for the end, although he is far ahead in terms of his seniority. No, he has unmatchable physical ability. And in our case, that kind of unmatchable physical ability and beam is represented by the government. Government is a great facilitator for the whole sector, yet is one of the biggest influencer that prices are moving, everybody is happy, and there's the Essential Commodities Act. Farmer wants to look at future and plant, not look at the past and plant, and therefore options make sense, but there is FCRA regulation. And markets are doing well, improving their perfectness, and there is some market distorting subsidy. So this unmatched physical impact on the market, because government is trying to look at a national interest, trying to harmonize all of this, but will have impact on any one or the other of these sectors, stakeholders in such a level of impact that there is no other than BEAM who can represent this stakeholder. Now, these five are covered, and we just heard the whole climate change and so on. So there is what is called Earth Overshoot Day. Some of you would be familiar. This measures the natural resources that we are consuming: water, topsoil, the general air and cleanliness and so on, the forest and the biodiversity. So what we can regenerate in a year by December 31st, how long do we take to consume all those natural resources, is measured as a date. And that is called the Earth Overshoot Day. In 2015, the year that just finished, the Earth Overshoot Day was August 13th. When we started measuring, it was December 31st. That means we consumed resources that we could regenerate in a year. Now it progressively slipped, despite all the awareness, all the noise, all the multilateral agreements around the world. It slipped to August 13th last year. That means by August 13th, we are consuming all the natural resources as a world that we can regenerate by December 31st. That means from 14th of August last year, we borrowed the natural resources from our great-grandchildren for our own survival in that year. Now, this year, maybe August 13th will become August 5th or 6th or something like that. So we are living on the charity of a stakeholder that is not yet part of our current set of stakeholders. So very interestingly, therefore, the analogy we can use for this stakeholder is Karna. So he is well known for his charity, and quite often he is bound by what he committed to for the charity rather than otherwise what is even right at a point of time. Now, each one wants different things, and growth trajectory means something. So what is right when you put all of this together? To please all of these different set of stakeholders sounds well nigh impossible. Then how do you really make all these different stakeholders happy? And to work through an impossible situation, you go back to another mythological story. This time one of the 10 avatars of Vishnu. You know, all may have heard of Hiranyakashipu. So he got a boon from the god saying that I should not be killed in day or in the night. I should not be killed by a man or an animal. I should not be killed inside the house or outside. I should not be killed with hands or with a weapon, and so on. Now, it almost looked like an impossible situation. He thought through carefully and asked for everything, that neither this nor that. So situation of our industry is pretty much like that. If you please one, the other person is displeased and so on. How do you really harmonize and say this is the right growth trajectory? And then God innovated. So we have one of the avatars of Vishnu as Narasimha. And so he beat all of these things. And so it's a man and animal combined. So neither man nor animal in that sense. So he killed Hiranyakashipu with his nails, neither hand nor weapon. He took him on to the courtyard, which is neither house inside nor outside. And it was a key dusk time, which is neither morning nor night. So there are ways, if you think through, saying that how do you harmonize all this and yet come out and make a growth trajectory which makes sense for everybody. So therefore, my conclusion really is going back to the all-powerful trinity of Indian gods to find a solution. So the Brahma, Vishnu and Maheshwara, the creator, the protector and the destroyer. And you need all of these together. Like we saw that innovation in the form of Narasimha to actually beat the impossible situation we are in. You know, when you say this is what is written in my fate and I need to rewrite my fate, you have to go back to Brahma. So all this while, we pursued a model of what I call a production-driven supply chain in agri-food sector, because we are short of food. So you produce what you can, maximize your yields, and so on, and then you bring it along the supply chain. And therefore you have situations of, at one point of time in a year, where farmer throws the tomatoes and onions and so on without even bringing it to the market, because the cost of transportation is more than the price he would fetch in the market. 3 months later, the prices of the very same products go up so much that governments stumble. That requires us to transform our model to a demand-driven value chain. Produce what a consumer wants, not just produce and put it through the auction in terms of your way forward. So this requires a number of things like digital technologies that Sudhakar talked about in terms of how do you create a production system which is responsive to demand signals rather than just produce whatever you can, so that you deal with these kinds of issues. So that is really rewriting the model which only a Brahma can. And now we heard about unseasonal rains, warm winters, and snowing deserts, and simply the glaciers which are melting away. So if all of this climate change has to be dealt with, you need obviously a climate resilient. In any case, we talked about natural resource conserving technology. So you need protection from the nature's fury in some sense that we created for ourselves. And if you have to bring those technologies in, and that's the production force that I'm really talking about, then you need a framework of approving technologies which are science-based, which are transparent and predictable. and market-led. So we have moved away into a situation where seed prices are controlled. There is uncertainty in terms of whether trials themselves can be carried out or not for particular kind of technologies. That need not be the only answer as a GMO, but the science should not stop its progress in finding solutions for what we want. We can decide saying that we want a different kind of technology, or we can look at, even within GMO, we don't want to rely on transgenic, but we can look at cisgenic and whatever else. But point is, we need protection from this climate change, and therefore that requires a policy of a different kind, and certainly the innovation from the industry to get there. So that's the protection of Vishnu. And lastly, we need destruction of a particular kind that only Shiva can unleash, and destruction from a lot of regulations that were relevant about 50 years ago. So if you had a mandi in 1950s and 60s through the APMC Act, there was a good reason, because you are trying to protect the farmer from a particular way in which the markets were working. But in the day and age of a digital era, if you say I'll stick to that law, it doesn't make sense. In the day and age when options can trigger a demand-led supply chain, that's the only signal that the market can get on a collective basis. Still I want to prohibit options, that doesn't make sense. If you say that there is a little bit of a deficit in my production, I want to impose Essential Commodities Act because it will solve my problem for 2 weeks. Now you're going to forever have a deficit because nobody else is interested in investing in that sector. If you say that I want to subsidize because that's the only vote-catching opportunity, the subsidies will get diverted and markets get distorted, and therefore there are no long-term investments. So I think all of these are the things that need to get destroyed because they were all relevant at a point of time but not relevant for today. So that's the last part of the solution: you destruct and recreate. So I think let's take a lot of these lessons out of mythology, and hopefully that kept you interested in looking at a long-term topic. And all the very best to everybody for the rest of the 2 days. Thank you.